And good afternoon, producer Susan. How's your life treating you these days?
It's a little toasty outside.
A little
How about
toast.
you?
It's Jersey in the summer, hot and humid. Well, it's not as bad as last week. We're in the 90s, and
Yeah, but it was dry last week. It's getting a little like humid out.
yeah. Well, it's summer. Hey, in 3 weeks it'll be Labor Day, and doesn't Penn State have a football game coming up Labor Day weekend?
Yes. Yes, our first home game, well, first game of the season and first home game against Nevada.
Okay, and I assume Penn State's rated pretty high over Nevada,
Yeah,
right?
you know what? I don't know what we are, but I'm sure we're in the top 25.
Okay, all right. Hey, you want to hear what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
Well, you know what? For the first time, by the way, normally we do two or three clips in addition to the taxpayer relief shot. This week, I have no clips to play other than the taxpayer relief shot. So that's kind of a first, I think, for us.
Wow, yeah.
So it's kind of all just narrative stuff, but we got a lot going on.
Oh, and we're number two, by the way. I just had to look us up in the AP polls.
Okay, yeah, Penn State's number two. Well, good. And is your quarterback returning from last year?
I believe so.
Okay, well, good. All right. All right. Well, anyway, so today's August 12th. The focus of the show is news and perspective you won't hear on TV. And again, I don't talk about things you may have heard on TV because you already heard them, they've already been gone over. So I try to talk about things you should have heard but didn't hear. Stupidest thing I've heard all week will tell you how the city of Philadelphia wasted $24 million to buy 25 electric school buses that never worked and why they can't get their money back. By the way, you're pretty good at math. $24 million to buy 25 buses. Roughly, what is that per bus?
That's almost $1 million a bus.
Almost $1 million a bus. You want to guess what a regular diesel powered school bus costs?
I'm probably gonna say close to 100,000.
Maybe 130, 140. So yeah, they could have bought for every electric school bus, they could have bought seven regular buses that work. Anyway, we'll go into a little more detail. I got two New Jersey stories here, but I think they have national implication. One will tell you about three convicted sex offenders who were also illegal aliens that were arrested by ICE agents in New Jersey last week. And we'll ask the question, why were three convicted sex offenders who were also illegal aliens walking around free on the streets in New Jersey?
Yeah.
Why weren't they still in jail? Or why hadn't they been turned over to ICE? And then in a similar story, we'll tell you about another illegal alien in New Jersey who had two prior DWI arrests and a felony domestic violence arrest who was who wound up killing a mother and her young daughter in a car crash he caused while he was driving drunk again, and asked the same question: why wasn't this guy in jail?
Yeah.
I mean, again, we talk about people who have lost their lives due to illegal aliens. Well, here's a mother and daughter who died at the hands of a legal alien who was driving drunk, even though he had two prior DWI arrests. And by the way, I guarantee he had no insurance. Um, I don't know if this is stupid or sad, but do you know there was a high school in Virginia that was arranging and paying for abortions for some of the teenage girls in their schools without the knowledge or consent of their parents? Can you believe that?
I don't think that actually, well, the fact that the schools were doing it is interesting, but I actually don't think that you need a parental consent to do that.
So if you had a 16-year-old daughter and she
I
went to
mean,
the,
as a parent, I would want to know, but I think under like there might be some sort of like HIPAA loophole that even though you're a minor, that you don't need their consent, I think.
well,
Not sure.
we'll go into detail, but I would think if a 16-year-old girl wanted to have a an elective medical procedure that the parents, she's the ward of their parents,
Mhm.
that it should be up to the parents to say, yes, I'm okay. I give my approval for my daughter to have this elective medical procedure. We'll go into more detail, tell you where the school was. Now, the big thing about Trump is nationalize the National Guard and has the FBI walking the street. Well, no, the crime is at a 30-year low. He didn't need to do that. Well, we're going to give you some facts and figures behind what's going on. And everything about crime being at a 30-year low in New York City, in Washington, D.C. is smoke and mirrors. We'll give you the data. Um, Coal-fired power plants in the United States. Now, they've been shutting them down like, every state's been shutting them down, right? So in the past year, I think they've maybe shut down five or six, and they've been shutting down five or six every year. Well, we're going to tell you how many the Chinese government is building in 12 months. And then we'll talk about their impact versus what we're doing. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the media's focus on Texas to redraw the boundaries of their congressional districts. Now, that's been a big news story, so you heard about that, but we're going to tell you the others. We're going to tell you what the news isn't telling you about the Texas. You've heard about that story, right? How Texas wants to redraw the districts.
Yes, the gerrymandering.
Jeremy, right? And and they're all making the Republicans out to be the bad guys, and this is horrible. They're doing this. Well, remember, this is news in perspective. You didn't hear on TV. We're going to give you the other side of that coin and tell and give you some examples of absurd gerrymandering that's been in place for more than a decade, and then ask you if you think what Texas is trying to do is awful. Then what do you think about what's happened in these other states for more than a decade? And in our science minute, we'll tell you about a promising clean new way to store surplus wind and solar power. And last but not least, our taxpayer lease shot comes to us from Florida, where a woman shoots and kills a man who was the father of one of her children, who was armed with a knife, who literally kicked in her front door. Big guy with a knife. And kicks in her front door, her locked front door. She's on the police. She's called 911, but he gets in the house before they show up. What do you think might have happened to her if she didn't have her gun?
She would have been seriously hurt or probably killed.
All right. So yeah, so that's another remember, restraining orders are just a piece of paper. And if folks out there, if you have a daughter or a granddaughter, if you want her to live a safe life and be protected from angry, crazy men in their lives, you ought to teach them how to sue. But here we go. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. So cities in 4 years ago, the city of Philadelphia spent 24 million to buy 25 electric school buses that never worked. They bought them in 2019. As you pointed out, that's almost $1 million per bus. Well, after trying them for the first season, they had the safety inspectors came in and said these buses are not safe. They were having all sorts of problems. They were having breakdowns, so they put them in a yard, in a storage yard by one of the rail stations, by one of the rail yards, because Philadelphia has a light rail system. And as we pointed out earlier, the average diesel bus cost around 140,000. So they could have bought 7 diesel buses for each one of those 25 electric buses. But after just one season of operation, the city had to park those now decommissioned buses due to serious structural and operational problems. Now, the city eventually sued the bus manufacturer, which was named Proterra, but in 2023, while the lawsuit was going on, Proterra up and declared bankruptcy, leaving the city with no hope of recovering any of the 24 million from them. And then to add insult to injury, while the lawsuit was going on, one night a fire broke out, started by one of the defective batteries in the storage yard where all the buses were being kept parked side by side. And that fire destroyed every single one of the 24 buses. So even though they couldn't get their money back from the manufacturer, they could have, sold the bus chassis and they could have retrofitted them with diesel engines and, the tire. But no, all the buses burned up because of a defective battery. So all 24 buses got burned to a crisp. How's that for uh, adding
Yeah,
insult?
and if the fire company had been called, by the way, or I'm sure that eventually the fire company was called, and this is true of the cars too. The fire departments will just let them burn because
Yeah,
they can't put them out.
you
You
can't
can't
put
put
out
those battery fires out.
you can't put a lithium battery fire out with water. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, so the
So
fire department is just going to let them burn no matter
right.
what. So
So by the way, and you probably now you live in Pennsylvania. Did you hear about that
I
fire?
did not hear about that fire in Pennsylvania.
And you didn't hear about them getting stuck with $24 million worth of worthless buses.
No, shame on the city of Philadelphia for spending taxpayer money,
Yeah, on
wasting taxpayer
yeah,
money.
yeah. All right. So talk about shame on people. Let's talk about two things that happened in New Jersey last week. ICE arrested 3 illegal aliens who were convicted sex offenders and who were walking around free in New Jersey. None of them have served any prison time, and the question should be why. Let me give you some examples. Here's a quote from the story. Officials with Homeland Security investigators and ICE enforcement announced these following arrests. Daniel Garcia Cruz, a 35-year-old Mexican national, was arrested in Hoboken on August 3rd. He had been sentenced to 3 years probation
Mm.
after being convicted for criminal sexual contact in March. Okay? He got 3 years probation for criminal sexual contact. Second guy, Manuel Gregorio Loja, uh, and his friend Leonidas Rivera Gonzalez were arrested on July 24th. Loja, age 36, an Ecuadorian national, was sentenced to a 3 year term of probation in June of 2024 for false imprisonment and cruelty and neglect of children. Rivera, age 40, a Salvadorian national, was sentenced to parole supervision for life for being found guilty of endangering sexual contact with a child in July of 2023. So it's actually four people. And then the fourth one, Jefferson Isaac Flores Pinada, a 19-year-old Honduran national, was arrested on July 13th in West New York. Flores was charged with aggravated sexual assault, false imprisonment in June of 2022. He was convicted of false imprisonment in December of 2023 and yet was still walking around free. So my question is, why why were these people not in jail?
Yeah, these were not misdemeanors. These were very serious felony charges.
Yeah, these were not this is not shoplifting. Uh, these were, sexual contact with a minor, and false imprisonment, child neglect, uh, and these people are walking around free. So when we talk about elections, when it's judges and prosecutors are on the ballot, um, and first of all, I think state law that I don't think people like this should be. I think there should be mandatory prison sentences, and that's up to the legislature. I don't
Yeah.
think people like this should be given a no jail option. Plea bargain and take a no jail option. So if that wasn't bad enough, and I guarantee you didn't see this story in the network news. In New Jersey, an illegal alien with two prior DWI arrests and a domestic violence felony arrest has been arrested again, only this time for killing a mother and daughter while driving while intoxicated. So again, you're an illegal alien with two TWIs and a domestic violence felony arrest, and you're still driving. What's wrong with this picture?
I mean, let's put the illegal alien part aside. Anybody who commits these felony crimes should not be on probation.
Should not be on probation.
Multiple.
Right.
This is any Jane Doe on the street, American citizen. If you commit these repeat felony offenses, you should be in jail. Now
Right.
you add in that extra component of being an undocumented person, like you need to be in jail and then you need to be deported.
Right, but here's the sad thing. New Jersey has a statewide policy that forbids the local police department from calling ICE and saying, "Hey, we arrested this guy and he's an illegal alien. Do you want him?" That would have solved the problem. But the police in New Jersey are not allowed to call ICE and say, "Hey, we've arrested this guy for this crime," and they know he's probably going to be given some sort of, probation. He's not going to
But
serve him.
that's the problem right there. They shouldn't be getting probation. They should be in jail.
Well, and they should also be able to call ICE and say,
Mhm.
"Hey." Well, knowing that they're going to get probation, the police ought to be able to call the police or the prosecutor ought to be able to call ICE and say, "Hey, we got this guy. We arrested him. We really don't want the time and we don't want the expense of keeping him in jail for whatever.
Mhm.
You want to come get him?" But they're forbidden in New Jersey. The local police departments are forbidden from calling ICE. I mean, because all of these people would have been picked up a year ago, and that mother and daughter would be alive today.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's move on to the Virginia High School. And here's the quote. The Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia has launched an investigation into accusations that school staff arranged abortions for students without notifying their parents, according to local reports. School officials at the Centerville High School, and Centerville is CEN, if you want to Google this, CENTRE, Centerville High School in Union Hill, Virginia, allegedly arranged and bankrolled abortions for girls in 2021, including a 17-year-old girl who was a minor. We learned yesterday of these concerning allegations from 2021. The Fairfax County School Board said in a statement, "We're launching an immediate and comprehensive investigation, and we all take concern of student well-being very seriously." Now, you notice they didn't deny, they didn't come out and say, "Nope, didn't
Mhm.
happen." They
Yep.
know what happened. They know it happened.
So I looked this up. So as in recent years, Roe versus Wade has been overturned and put back to the state. So this law varies from state to state. The many states, especially the southern states, abortion is banned, period, no matter what. In some of the northern states, the laws vary anywhere from 16, 17, or 18, depending on how they define. Uh, I mean, you're still a minor under 16, but as far as making your own health choices, it varies from state between 16 to 18. But in those states where it's under 18, there is also something called a judicial bypass where you don't need a parent's consent.
Okay.
But in most states, you do need, if you're under 18, you need at least one parent consent.
Right. And not only were they not only even if they she could do it without the parents' consent, where does the school get off saying we're going to fund
Yeah.
it, we're going to pay the doctor's bill?
Hmm.
I mean, I'm just outraged that
Yeah.
a school not only arranged for it, but we're paying for it.
Hmm.
Uh, I I don't. I mean, if you feel differently from me, but I'm just outraged that
Yeah,
a
the school shouldn't be doing, I mean, the school, if they need to provide counseling because, they have a child in crisis, they can provide counseling, but they should not be providing,
yeah,
unless it's emergency medical care, they shouldn't be providing medical care.
exactly. So anyway, so that was Centerville High School in Union Hill, Virginia. You can look it up and
And
produce.
this has, I think we need to clarify, this has nothing to do with whether your stance on abortion, whether you think that's right or wrong. This is the fact that the school board is
Yeah,
providing this care.
yeah. The high school staff is facilitating, arranging, and paying for the abortion without the
Mhm.
knowledge or consent of the parents. So again, I'm not coming out saying that abortion is right or wrong. I'm just saying that I believe the conduct of the school was outrageous.
Yes.
So I'm not arguing. I'm not making an argument that abortions are right or wrong. I'm just saying it's outrageous that the school would take it upon
Mhm.
themselves uh, to to arrange for this and pay for it without the parents' consent.
Mhm.
All right, let's move on to Washington, D.C. That's been the big news story, right? Trump has brought in the
Yeah.
National Guard. He's put the FBI in the streets. And the mayor comes out, Muriel Bowser said, oh, the whole thing in the media saying, well, but its crime has been at a 10-year low or 20-year low, whatever. Well, let me tell you, when they say that, that's like if somebody was 300 pounds overweight and they lost 20 pounds, they're still morbidly obese.
Mhm.
And you don't celebrate the fact that okay, well, you're 300 pounds over, you were three, and now you're only 280 pounds overweight. Does that make it okay?
No.
No.
I
All
mean,
right.
good that you're moving in the right direction, but you still have a very long way to go.
But it doesn't mean, oh, hey, you're fit and healthy. Congratulations. No. So let me give you some data. So population of Washington, D.C. is 702,000. So far this year, they've had 99 homicides. Now, that was as of August 11th. Well, if you annualize the number, in other words, if they were, which, by the way, that's roughly 12 or 13 homicides every month. If they keep that up for the remainder of the
Every
year,
other day.
right? If you keep that up for the remainder of the year, that will be 162 homicides for the full year, which would put their annual homicide rate at 23.1 per 100,000 residents. Now, to put that in context, you want to guess what the national homicide rate per 100,000 is in this country?
Oh, it's considerably lower than that. I'm going to say it's like under 10%.
Five. It's
Yeah, I
five.
was going to say around 5.
They're at 23. At the rate they're going, they're going to hit 23.1, which
Mhm.
is four and a half times greater than the national average.
Yeah.
Now, let's come to assault with a dangerous weapon, which is included in the series, which includes carjacking, armed carjacking. So far this year, 223 days. You know how many assault with a deadly weapon they've had in 223 days?
Oh, I'm going to say at least one a day.
How about two and a half a day?
Wow.
534.
Wow.
Annualized, that puts the assault with a deadly weapon rate per 100,000 residents at an astounding 124.3 per 100,000. Can you imagine? That's more than two a day.
Yeah.
Assault with a deadly weapon is more than two a day. So, despite the mayor boasting about the decrease in crime rates from last year to this year, the crime rate in her city is still nothing to be proud of. In fact, it's still freaking sky high. So, when you hear, well, the crime rate is down, well, it's down, but it's still one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in the United States. So, don't be misled by, oh, it's down by 12%. Again, that's
Mhm.
like the 300 pounds overweight lost 10 pounds. It is nothing to be,
Mhm.
cheering about. All right, so let's go back to coal plants. So, every time a coal plant gets shut down in one of our states, it's big front page news. Governor shuts down coal plant, And I think last year I did a quick check. I think nationwide last year we shut down 6 coal plants. Um, do you know how much new this year? China is on track to set a new all-time record. They're bringing on coal-fired power plants. They're going to bring on 94.5 gigawatts
Wow.
of coal. Now, but let me put something in perspective. I have to fix a typo. That's not anyway. Most coal plants are around 500 megawatts. A megawatt is half a gigawatt. And if you have a really huge power plant, maybe it's a 1 gigawatt. Well, that means even if these were all, so 94 and a half gigawatts of power is like 180 normal 500 megawatt power plants. So here we are cheering about we shut down 5 or 6 a year, and they're going to bring online 180 new coal-fired power plants in one 12-month period.
I think a couple of shows ago we were talking about the to put into perspective what a gigawatt is. In Back to the Future, it was 1.2 gigawatts to send the lightning bolt of electricity to send the DeLorean back to the future.
Well, actually, the Hoover Dam in outside of Las Vegas, the Hoover Dam is a 1 gigawatt power plant.
Yeah,
So
and that's massive.
massive. So they're going to bring online 94 and a half gigawatts of coal-fired capacity. And here we are cheering, oh, we shut down 5 coal-fired plants in the entire United States. Well, when we talk about doing this, I've used this expression before. What we're doing in terms of shutting down is the equivalent of a fart in a gale of wind. I mean,
Hmm.
it will be a rounding error when you look at the total uh, amount of coal-fired power production in this world. And by the way, India is no better. India is right on their tail. And I don't have the stats for India, but trust me, between
Hmm.
India and China, they are building new ones at 5 or 6 times the rate that we're taking our old ones offline. So again, when they start sharing about, oh, we took this, 20-year-old coal power, again, it's the globally. But wait, does the air move around the world? Does
Yeah,
our
the jet stream moves from west to east.
You mean our air doesn't stay just over our country? It moves around?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. So
Oh,
yeah, whatever we're doing, the United States and some of the European countries are taking these, steps towards, climate change and cleaner air. Then you've got, like you said, countries like
China
China
and
and
India, yeah,
India that are basically counteracting our steps.
right. So again, it's what we're doing when we get all excited. Oh, we're going to shut down this coal fire. Again, folks, it's the equivalent of a fart in a gale of wind. Until countries like China and India get on board, nothing we can do is going to have any meaningful impact on greenhouse gas production in
And
this
also keep in
climate.
mind that, as I mentioned, the jet stream goes from west to east,
Yep,
and China being to the west of us,
yep. It's going to
that
come right.
airflow is going to hit California before then across the United States before it
That's
gets to New
right.
Jersey.
That's right. All right, let's talk about gerrymandering. So everybody's making the big thing where Texas. Now, by the way, Texas cannot increase their number of seats because that's fixed by the census, and maybe in the 2030 census they'll pick up. But all they're trying to do is redraw some of the boundaries of the existing congressional districts they have with the hope of picking up a couple of seats. Well, everybody, oh, that's gerrymandering. They're evil. They're trying to screw the Democrats. Well, I want to talk about screw the Democrats. Um, there's a ever heard of a part of the country called New England?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what states comprise New England?
Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York.
No,
I think,
not New York, but Maine and Maine.
yeah, Maine. Oh, not New
Oh,
York. New York's not part
no,
of.
no.
Okay.
Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So those
Yeah.
6 states. Now, Trump collectively got 40% of the vote out of those 6 states. So you would think, well, hey, they ought to have about 40% of the representatives on the seat. Do you know how many representatives in the House of how many congressmen in the House of Representatives there are if you take all those 6 states in total? You want to take a guess?
12.
Zero,
Oh, really?
zero.
Oh,
So you talk about taking uh, gerrymandering to a science, and this has been this way for more than a decade. So they have refined, so you talk about hypocrisy. Here they are screaming about gerrymandering. They have been the masters of gerrymandering for more than a decade.
Mhm.
And let me give you some more stats. And here are some other blue states that have zero Republican House seats: Hawaii, New Mexico, Delaware. And here's blue states with only one Republican House seat: Maryland, Oregon. Um, so Democrats, and this isn't something new. Again, this has been this way for, in the case of Massachusetts, I think the last time they had a Republican congressman in Massachusetts was 1995. So they have refined gerrymandering to an art. And here they are, and all of a sudden, Texas wants to do what they've been doing for decades, and all of a sudden, oh no, look what they're doing, they're evil. So no, folks, they're just doing exactly what the Democrats have been doing for decades.
Yep.
So again, think about that. The entire New England, all six states, again, um, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Trump got 40% of the vote. There's not a single Republican congressman in any one of those states. It's hard to believe, but that's how they managed to gerrymander those states. All right. How much time we got?
You got about 10 minutes.
Okay, let's go to. By the way, I can tell you it's not on the list, but let me tell you. You've heard this thing about Sydney Sweeney, and
Yes.
she has great genes.
Yes.
Well, did you know that Sydney Sweeney is a competitive pistol shooter?
Yes, I did know that.
And by the way, her trainer, her instructor is a guy named Taron Butler, and he's the guy that trained Keanu Reeves in all the John Wick movies. If
Hmm.
you've seen a John Wick movie,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
To how to shoot all those guns properly and make it look, real. Anyway, so when you're shooting competitively, there's typically a spot where you have to fire your gun, empty the magazine, eject the magazine, and put a fresh magazine in, and continue shooting. Well, the time when you from the eject the magazine, put the new one in, that's called your split time, right? Your
Hmm.
split time.
Yep.
So Taryn Butler has a picture, has a video of her, a little YouTube video of Sydney Sweeney doing exactly that, emptying her first magazine, ejecting the empty mag, putting the new one in. And the caption he has in the video is, "Sydney Sweeney has great splits." That's about that. How about that one? All right. Last but not least, let's talk about energy storage. One of the problems with solar and wind is that the demand for solar and wind power frequently, in fact, most of the time, doesn't match what they're producing. So you can have like a windy, sunny, windy Saturday when all the businesses and manufacturing plants are shoot, and there's no way to store that energy, particularly if you need to use it like on a cold, snowy day when there's no wind and no sun. So everybody has always said, well, we need to have these battery banks. Now, for one city to give you a day's worth of stored energy, you would need a battery the size of Walmart. And of course, that battery would be made of rare earth minerals like lithium,
Mhm.
which is and the mining of lithium, of course, is very, very destructive.
And we also don't have that much in the United States. There's like one lithium mine in the entire
Right,
United States, and it's in Nevada, and it's a very small one.
right. And so we're getting from China. But if you look at the destruction, if you've ever seen pictures of lithium mine, they're not, they're big open pit, they're dirty, they're nasty, they're
Mhm.
polluting. So, so clearly that's one of the reasons, you can't store wind and it's never been practical to store wind and solar power to use it for when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. So here's what's happening in Germany. Do you know what hydrolysis is?
Water.
Yeah, well, when you take electricity, you ever done the science experiment where you break water is H2O,
Yeah.
and
And
you put electricity in it and you can break it into hydrogen and oxygen, right?
mhm. Yep.
So one of the things they're doing in Germany now, they're using wind and solar to break water into hydrogen and oxygen. They capture the hydrogen, and we talk about methane and natural gas. Those are hydrocarbons because you have hydrogen bonded to carbon, and when you burn a hydrocarbon fuel, one of the byproducts is CO2. Well, when you burn hydrogen, which is a great fuel in a gas turbine, the only byproduct when you burn hydrogen in a gas turbine?
Is water.
Water. There's no CO2. It's water.
Right.
So it's the cleanest fuel there is. So what they're doing now is they're using wind and solar power to create hydrogen, which they then use to power hydrogen-powered gas turbines to provide electric power when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. I think, hydrogen storage and hydrogen-powered gas turbines, could be a breakthrough. I don't know. Any thoughts on the use of hydrogen, the creation of hydrogen as a turbine fuel?
Yeah, I mean, here we have our entire public fleet transportation is condensed natural gas, and the
Right,
byproduct
CNG.
of that
Right,
is water.
right, right, CNG. Yeah. So, and by the way, my garbage truck and a lot of the shuttle buses around, in fact, all the shuttle buses at most airports are CNG too.
Mhm.
So it's a great fuel, and hydrogen is even cleaner than compressed natural gas. Um, so I think we finally come upon a solution other than massive battery banks, which is hydrogen storage. Anyway, taxpayer relief shots. Why do we call them taxpayer relief shot? Well, here's the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida. He'll explain it to you.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
And do we have time for Sheriff Grady Judd?
Sure.
Okay, let's find Sheriff Grady Judd, who's Polk County, Florida. And here we go. Ah.
I would highly suggest that if a looter breaks into your home, comes into your home while you're there to steal stuff, that you take your gun and you shoot him. You shoot him so that he looks like grated cheese.
So yeah, I'm still waiting. I don't think ever think we're going to find a New Jersey sheriff to say anything like that. But all right, so let's go to Florida, where this young woman, she has an ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, the father of one of her children, and you can't see it in the video, but you'll hear him. He's kicking on her front door. He's kicking forward, then he turns around with his back to the door, and he's kicking like a mule, trying to kick the door, and he eventually succeeds kicking in the door. And here we go.
As minutes before a woman inside shot and killed him. Take a look at this video from the front porch. You can see the man kicking the front door on James Taylor Lane and screaming at those who are inside. Then the 54-year-old man goes back to kicking in the door. After a few tries, he gets in. The sheriff said once inside, he armed himself with a knife and threatened to harm his children's mother. A woman in a bedroom said she was in fear for her life and shot the man in the head. He died on scene. The man had an active domestic violence injunction filed on him, and the sheriff says when this all happened, the man was on his way to an anger management class.
Maybe he should have gone to the anger management
Yeah.
class.
And that injunction they just mentioned, that's nothing but a piece of paper.
Nothing but a piece of paper. So, folks, if you have daughters or granddaughters or female relatives and they have a unstable ex-boyfriend, ex-house, the best thing you can do is if they don't already have a gun and teach them how to shoot, take them to a shooting range, teach them how to
Mhm.
shoot. Because I don't have the stats at my fingertips, but I know there are literally hundreds of women each year who are killed by former domestic partners where they had a restraining order.
Mhm.
So by all means, do that. Anyway, producer Susan, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Nope. Looking forward to autumn when
You
it's
and me both.
hopefully going to be cooler out.
I think a month from now we're going to be in. It's going to be fall. Anyway. So anyway, folks, thanks for listening to the podcast and for giving up 30 minutes out of your day to listen to me ramble on things I find of interest important. And I hope you found them as interesting and important as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, give producer Susan a couple of days, and you'll be able to find some of those story links on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeyjoe.com, with Jersey being spelled Jerzee. And if you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, or you want me to send you one of the story links directly, you can do that by just sending me an email to joe@jerzeyjoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with a J-E-R, a Z, and two E's. And with that, producer Susan, unless you've got anything else, we'll say goodnight and I'll talk to you next week. All
All
right?
right, Jersey Joe.
You take good. Bye-bye.